Yo, Carl, just got finished listening to your latest episode where you talked about your games at North Texas RPG Con, and that sounded awesome, dude. That AD&D game you ran sounded like a hoot, dude. Everybody getting shrunken down. It sounded like you had a great group of players, and the fact that a couple of them came back for the second day, that says a lot about how much fun they had. So just really good job on that, dude. Yeah, man, I'm just glad you were able to get there and have fun and run some sweet games. So you take it easy, Carl. I'll talk to you later. Peace out.
Carl Rodriguez is the GMologist, GM extraordinaire, the GMologist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents. That was Joe Richter from Hindsightless at the top of the show. Thank you so much, Joe, for those kind words. I think everyone did have a good time. I really enjoyed North Texas RPG Con. I don't know what was different about it. I know someone had made the comment, well, you're paying $150 for the weekend, so you better pay attention, or it behooves you to pay attention to the games that you're at. I guess I didn't feel that way at ChupacabraCon. I don't know what the cost difference is. I know at ChupacabraCon they give you a reduction in as a GM if you sign up as a GM. And at North Texas, I think you're just kind of expected to run games. They really don't give a discount as a GM. Maybe if you're a special guest, you get a discount. It's possible. I don't know. I know they get a really good rate for the rooms though, which is pretty nice. So in comparison to ChupacabraCon, the is it Weston? Yeah, the DFW Weston gives you a much better rate than the Embassy Suites Hotel for the duration of for the nights for the cost of a room per night. I think that's how you say that. So anyway, I don't know. This is this will be an interesting podcast here. I just picked up a copy of the Pendragon Core Rulebook, the 6th edition, and I really want to like it. But I don't know. There's some things in here that just leave me kind of wanting, I would say. So, and I don't know if that means, I've been playing Pendragon for a long time here in front of me, just inspired by the purchase at the very least, right? I went back to my old stuff. I have the original Grey Knight. They seem to have redone it to quote unquote modernize it, but it's a really great starting adventure for a group of knights who are just now coming to Camelot. With it, I have the Tournament of Dreams, which has Tournament of Dreams and Circle of Gold, two different types of adventures, or two adventures that are in there. And then, next to it, I have the Boy King. I think this is the 3rd edition version of from Pendragon, circa 1981. And yeah, it's the Arthur Claims the Throne of Britain, the original 80-year campaign, dozens of adventures, a complete chronology of Arthur's reign. And it's a little beat up because I did use a lot of it. Infamously, I'm sure you may have heard of the brothers who took their rivalry to the game, this Pendragon game. And I did run through the Arthurian stuff. I have it next to it, actually, except my cat is lying on it. Jewel, you lying on the books. They like to lie on books and climb in boxes, as you know, if you have cats. So I have Saxons by Robertson and others. That's the main author. But I got into Pendragon so much. I even have a playtest credit in this book. So it is by Roderick Robertson, etc. So Saxons, Wolves of the Fold. So this is a supplement for King Arthur Pendragon. I think this was for the 4th edition of the game, potentially. Although I think 3rd and 4th are very similar. Anyway, it's a full 70-year campaign from 449 from the Saxon point of view until the Battle of Badon in 518. So kind of interesting. If you wanted to do Boy King or Saxons, you could do that. And then I have the most recent before this one, the Pendragon 5.2. And one person on my Discord made a comment, well, I like the art from 5.2 better, or the cover art at least. It has a knight in armor. It must be Arthur because he has the Arthur's sort of a hint of Arthur's shield heraldry, I believe. King Arthur Pendragon. And the art in this one, I mean, the art is all done in this book, in the 5.2 book, by Jaime Garcia Mendoza, and he does all the interior art, which is fantastic, actually. It's very nice art in this, and it's a heavy book. It's kind of Nocturnal Media did it on contract from Chaosium, maybe, and then Chaosium got it back in the 6th edition. Well, the book is lighter. The paper is different. I don't know. I like the art in it. The cover art is different. I like the interior flap art, fold art, and I know there's a lot of artists I really do like. So the cover art is by Mark Smiley. So yeah, Smiley, and the interior art is by Andrei Fedosov, who's done a lot of, I think he's done Warhammer stuff. Eric Holtz, who does a lot of Harn stuff. Jaime Garcia Mendoza, Joseph Perez, Eleanor Pitiera, Agath Pedi, Dimitar Stoyanov, John Simonov, and Wicked Duel LLC. So a whole host of artists into here. And I think, yeah, I mean, I haven't read through it yet, but I think so one thing I was trying to sell my players on, and maybe this is part of it, I was trying to sell my players on Pendragon, and it's really cool, and one of my players loves to do like story path type character generation, and this one doesn't really have that. And the Pendragon 5.2 is comprehensive. It has so basically you could start from your grandfather and see what he did, what kind of glory he contributed to you, to your father, and then you have your father's history and what glory he contributed to you. So when you start as a knight, you have this sort of family history. And in the new edition, it says, look at this other book. I'll actually read it here. Hold on. It says, for those wishing to discover more detail about their family line, see the expanded family system in the Pendragon Noble's Handbook for more in-depth method of generating your family tree. So I guess maybe that's part of the issue, is there all the books aren't out, and I guess there are more books. It's not all incomprehensive. Now, 5.2, it assumes in the core rule book that you are playing in Salisbury, and that's where you're from. I guess you could start it in different time periods, but effectively start in Salisbury. And then there's another book which I don't have. I was looking in my PDF collection, and it is called The Book of Sires, and it has you could start from a number of different places, and it has a sort of your family history from a number of different places in Britain, and that harkens to Knights Adventurous in the original I think 3rd edition King Arthur Pendragon, and the 4th edition. Hold on. So I did dig out the 3rd and 4th edition, and I like the 3rd edition is kind of what I started with. There's a couple earlier editions, for example. I guess there was a previous edition. I think I have nobility or nobles and something from an earlier edition. And well, this is where I started with. In character creation generation, I believe you needed the core rule book, and then the Knights Adventurous book if you were going to start in different locations, which was kind of cool. Yeah. I'm actually flipping through my book, and it looks like I colored in some of the heraldry, which is kind of funny. Looks pretty good, actually. I colored in some of the heraldry for the things, and then all this kind of stuff for Knights Adventurous. Yeah, so I think in the third edition it was kind of more generic. It didn't say, I mean, it did start by default in Salisbury, but you could start in other places based on that. In 5.2 it says, this is from Salisbury, this is what your family would have experienced. Now, let me see, it looks like the fourth edition, and the covers, if you're wondering, the third edition is the bluish cover with looks like Arthur and Gwen with a falcon on his wrist and Guinevere in the back. The cover designed by Charlie Crank, artist Mike Weaver, and the Pendragon 4th edition, the cover artist is Stephen King. The cover design is also by Charlie Crank, and that's a cover of, looks like Merlin handing Arthur presumably a magical sword. So, yeah, it is interesting. In the third edition, the blue cover, it is sort of generic, but in the fourth edition it says this is a Salisbury family history, and I guess they have other supplements. There are other supplements. I know the Saxons Books has its own family history, and then there's a book on Beyond the Wall. There's an Irish book. There is a book that takes place in Scandinavia, sort of like a reference homage to Prince Valiant, right? So pretty interesting stuff. I mean, Pendragon amalgamates a lot of things. So I guess like in 5.2 or 5.2, whatever, they do have like the Book of Sires that does family histories from a number of locations. It is a massive book, and I probably will add it to my collection just to give people that option. But it's kind of, I don't know, I guess maybe that I support it because, it is Pendragon and it is the line, and I want to support the line in Chaosium. But what changes are there? A note on the new edition. So it doesn't really differ significantly from prior editions. Rather, the changes are intended to address ambiguities and enhance immersive gameplay. So I know people do, according to the late Greg Stafford, this is Greg Stafford's Ultimate Edition because it'll be his last version. My age requires me to work on new material, not revise the old. So there you go. So I think characteristics are a little different. Their healing rate is con divided by 5, movement rate is strength and dex plus 5. Brawling is a new derived characteristic, strength plus size divided by 6, and then that's about it to convert. Skills have been renamed or combined. Folklore combines fairy lore and folklore. Play instrument doesn't have a specialization. Read write is now literacy. Recognize combines recognize and heraldry. Siege is now siegecraft, a skill which will be covered in greater detail in another supplement. So I guess weapon skills are broader. In application, sword now includes greatsword, renamed the longsword. Lance is now charge. Dagger becomes your brawling skill. I guess that kind of puts it in line a little with Call of Cthulhu. Any weapon with a wooden haft is either hafted or two-handed hafted, depending on how you wield it. So skills can be reworked and stuff, but that's about it. There is also references. I was looking through references to a Game Master's book as well. So I guess they're having another kind of book that's going to be an expansion. But this book does say everything you need to play, and containing all the rules you need to play. It is a standalone product which can be combined with other books in the line to enhance your Pendragon experience. So what I'm going to do, I do have the starter set, which I really did like, and I'm going to run through the solo. All right, so here's the setup. It is the year of our Lord 509. Britain is a large verdant island surrounded by turbulent seas and consisting of 5 geographic regions. The north, beyond Hadrian's Wall, that is, Cambria and Cornwall to the west and south, Cumbria in the middle, and Logres to the south and east. There's some other islands off the coast. There's also Ireland to the west. Much of the land is hilly and covered in dense ancient forests, some rumored to be haunted. There's deadly beasts and fierce British lions and panthers that keep the woods dangerous, even when crumbling old Roman roads cross them. deeper into the heartwood and marsh-lipped dragons, whose occasional sallies wreak terrible havoc upon nearby settlements. So, right now, in 509, these are dark times indeed. The land has fallen into anarchy and despair. The last High King of Britain, Aurelius Ambrosius, died 30 years ago. His brother Uther ruled for 15 years. And then 14 years ago, treachery killed him and a lot of other leaders of Logris, the nobility of Logris, from Saxon treachery were felled. That was 14 years ago, like I said. And yeah, so now Britain cries out for a new king, for the return of strength, unity, and stability. Here in Pelin, I live on Sir Ector's estate. These troubles seem very far away, and there is a brisk autumn breeze that riles up my hair as I step out of the manor hall and spot Arthur and Kay getting ready for Quintain practice. They, I believe, are squires, and I am but a page of 14. My name is Aidan, and I am called Honest Aidan. That is my signature trait. So traits are a series of characteristics, personality traits, as they're also called, that kind of help you to roleplay your character. It can be a criticism of Pendragon, and that, well, this is, but it also, I think, is a good guide for how you can roleplay your character. And criticism in that, oh, well, I don't have agency. I want to do what I want to do. But you can set up your character to be cruel if you want to. Good luck, but, hey. So his name is Honest Aidan. Because of that, he probably gets into some trouble, and I put out some in brawling skill. His family is keen-eyed, so he has a little bit of awareness. So I think my starting skills are 8, 10, 8 for awareness, courtesy, and first aid. Brawling is 10, like I said. Charge, which is like using lances, is 9. Horsemanship is 9. Spear is 7, and sword is also 9. So I have some passions: homage to my lord, love of family, hospitality, and honor, which are all set at 15, according to the solo setup. And what else? Of the traits, so the chaste, forgiving, merciful, modest, spiritual, and temperate, all Christian traits, are set at 13. And then the opposite, so the traits have an opposite, so like chaste, lustful, honest, deceitful. The opposite one is set enough to get to the whole total to be 20. So for example, as I'm honest, is that my signature trait is honest, so my honest is 16, my deceitful is 4. Also valorous and cowardly are 15 and 5 respectively. So I did put some up at also I put I'm a bit energetic, so 12 to 8, and just, so 12 to 8. Hey, I want to be a knight one of these days, so I'm working on my knightly traits. You get bonuses and glory if you have knightly traits and Christian traits and pagan traits and all that kind of stuff. So that is the setup. I think that is it. And then I will start the adventure of the Sword in the Stone. And before I get started, here's the courtesy. There are spoilers ahead, although the solo is a choose-your-own-adventure from the starter set. So, I guess I will not say where I'm going. I will just go there or make rolls, and of course that can lead me somewhere. I have my dice out, I have my books out, the solo book. I'm using the Saxons book as sort of a clipboard for my character sheet. I have the rule book from the starter set, and I have some various, the Boy King and the second edition modules, Tournament of Dreams and the Grey Knight, strewn about the bed. And in the box for the starter set, I have my dice. The box does come with a D20 and 2, 4, 6 six-sided dice. So let's get going. There is some reading, so I will be reading and then pausing here and there, and hopefully you won't notice that, but I might take a drink to clear my throat as I read. So here goes. Sir Ector's manor is built upon the ruins of an ancient hill fort in the country of Penlyn. Oh good, it is pronounced Penlyn. The hall, Sir Ector's place of residence, is a grand 2-story stone building with an entrance on the second floor. On this fine autumnal day, with the harvest done and the air getting chillier, you are enjoying a brief respite from your duties with your friend and fellow page Alice. The two of you are sitting near the warmth of the central hearth, playing a game of improvised draught using river pebbles, when the main door to the hall flies open. It is your friend Arthur, Kay's younger brother, and his fine features are lit up with excitement. He beams at you. Kay wants to do some quintain practice, and I asked if you could join us, and he said yes. You leap to your feet. As page, you are not allowed to practice martial skills with the squires. Kay, the senior squire of the household, must be feeling magnanimous. The game of draughts forgotten, you and Alice run outside with Arthur. The knight is, if nothing else, a mounted warrior, and the knight is most fearsome on the battlefield as part of the massed mounted lance charge. Against his unstoppable force, few enemies may stand. Learning how to ride your horse into battle takes years of practice. It requires riding at a full gallop, holding a heavy shield in one hand and a long, wobbly stick in the other, all the while maintaining balance and control of the mount, long enough to score a meaningful hit against the target without falling off afterward. Squires practice their aim with lances using a device called the quintain. These vary in construction from simple to elaborate. Sir Ector's quintain is decidedly the former, but it serves its purpose well enough. A crossbeam atop a post is used to hang an iron disc about the size of a man's face. The distance from the ground may be adjusted, but usually, like today, it is hung at the appropriate point where a precise hit is likely to unhorse a knight. The idea is to execute a charge with a lance and try to score a direct hit on the disc, which is molded in such a way that only striking the very center will a sonorous gong sound out. As you run out onto the top stairs landing outside the hall, you see Kay has set up the quintain and brought a small stack of rebaited lances, their normally lethal points dulled with a cloth bundle. Your excitement dims when you see that he has also brought out a mechanical hobby horse, a four-wheeled contraption with a saddle on top which must be pulled by two others in order to achieve momentum and speed. Kay seems to register your disappointment as you descend the stairs. What? Did you think I was going to get Bishop out for this? Bishop is the name of Sir Ector's charger, a fine warhorse who has seen many battles and bears the scars to prove it. It is enough that the whelp promised to do my chores for a fortnight in exchange for this favor. Arthur looks abashed. Clearly, he did not want Kay to mention this part of the deal. Being an older squire of 17 winters, Arthur has many responsibilities already. Taking on Kay's tasks will mean long hours and sore limbs. So now the solo is suggesting I roll just versus arbitrary to see how I feel about this. My just is a 12. My arbitrary is an 8. So I rolled a 5, which is underneath my score of 12 in just. So I go to that entry. So K is bigger, but, I'm just and apparently honest. I do not get to check my just because I did not roll a crit. To roll a crit, you roll exactly the number, which I would have needed a 12. So, though K is 7 years my senior and at least 2 stone of weight, I feel I have to say something. If it comes at the expense of Arthur having to do all your work for you, K, then I don't want it. You feel your eyes flash while my heart pounds inside my chest. I would love nothing more than to take a shot at the quintain, but not at the expense of my buddy Arthur. So everything is quiet for a moment. You see Alice has come out on the landing and watching the whole scene, which makes my cheeks flush bright red, and Kay's is one of utter bemusement. Fine, he says at last with a shrug. For one fleeting moment, I think I might have won this standoff. I guess this doesn't matter to you as much as the whelp said it did. Still, it would be a shame to waste my setting up this quintain. I'll take a few passes with the lance, and you and the whelp can pull me. Don't worry, says Arthur. Before you know it, you'll be doing this practice so much you'll wish the quintain had never been built. I also, actually, since I made a just decision against my own best interests, according to this solo, I get to check on my honor. But Kay hops onto the back of the hobby horse, causing its legs to bow alarmingly. He wields a lance 12 feet long and made from a single piece of ashwood as if it were a stick. All right, horsey, let's go. He pretends to spur the horse. Arthur laughs. From the landing, Alice shouts out words of encouragement. My leather shoes dig into the uneven turf as I pull hard. Even with Arthur's help, this is going to be tough. I need to make a strength check. Sorry, it's called an unopposed strength, or an unopposed roll of strength. Check would be when you check it, if you succeed or not, or depending on what the game suggests. So I rolled a 2 out of 12, so I succeed. I put everything I have into pulling the horse, and despite the bumpy turf underneath Kay's bulk, Arthur and I managed to get it up to a decent speed. You can see the cloth-covered tip of the lance sticking out above your head, and entertain the ludicrous thought that this is what all horses must see in battle. The lance strikes home, the metal disc ringing out to indicate a perfect strike. The quote-unquote horse slows to a stop, and Kay hops off. "That's how it's done, children," he says, starting to walk off, leaving the tiding up to myself and Arthur. So soon after the tilt, Sir Ector arrived, and there's a blast of a horn. He has come from the village of Cairgai, and the household knight, Sir Jonas, was riding behind him. He tells us that Mawan, the king, and his court are to pay a visit in 2 days' time and stay with them throughout the Feast of St. Andrews. And tomorrow, they're going to go a-hunting for boar. So quintain practice was over, and we go a-hunting. So as we prepare, the principals are Sir Ector, Sir Jonas, and a gnarled old huntsman named Glyn. Di is his dog boy. And as we set off on the hunt, Sir Ector dismounts and confers with Glyn at the best approach. Then Kay approached me. He's holding a sausage chunk, tears it apart with his teeth, and gives me half. He says, "You should eat something. Hunts can last all day," which is interesting because Kay is usually not so nice. I get a different call from the huntsman horn at this point, and Kay says you should stick nearby him and Sir Hector. If we get separated, just listen for the call. Once we've taken the boar, I get to help bring it back as I'm a page. So everyone is expected to help with the hunt. So we had risen up. We get the hearth stoked up, we do other menial tasks, but it's a big, full-on household spectacle. Anyway, as everyone's running off, Glyn signals a finding, the opening stage of a hunt, where the beast is unharbored, and the chase begins. The hound set up a tremendous racket and nearly pulled Dar off his feet as they begin to move towards the woods. The knights mount up, and Kay and Arthur rush towards their horses. Arthur stops, and he hands me a spear. In case you run into any trouble, he says, his face grim. You feel a wave of gratitude. I feel a wave of gratitude wash over me. It is not as sophisticated as the knight's boar spears, but hey, it's better than nothing. I grip the spear and break into a trot, keeping up with the knights as they canter towards the woods. Soon I'm among the trees, the dead leaves of autumn crunching beneath my shoes. The bracken and branches are not so bad. I keep my eye on the knights as they press ahead, dogs and huntsmen in the lead. I hear the blast from Glyn's horn. The quarry is found. The chase is on. I see signs of movement deeper in the woods and go that way, my breath ragged in my throat and coming out in great white puffs. More horn blasts, now from multiple hunters, dogs barking and howling, echoing among the trees. Uh-oh. I'm all alone. So the game called for me to make an awareness roll of where there's the avoidance of the boar, and I obtained a partial success. That means that I succeeded. The boar succeeded, but it got a higher number closest to its value. So it tells me that I'm sure the boar and the hunting party must be nearby, but I run into a nearly impassable wall of bramble and mulberry trees. I'm trying to weave my way through. All right, so it was called again for an awareness roll, and I spot a path through the brambles, which I make, and then it calls for a dex check or strength check. It doesn't matter; they're both the same for me. At this point, are they? My con's a little higher, but I roll a d20, try to get under a 12, and I roll a 6, so I through. So what happens now? Wow, okay, everything is deathly still. The boar is circling the clearing now, eyeing me. I keep my spear up in guard. As I turn, matching the boar's movements, blood thunders in my ears, and my breath comes out in ragged gasps. I'm hoping the boar will simply run off, but instead it stops, paws the ground. Oh yeah, it's going to charge, it seems. But then there's a great throaty bark. An Arwen, the wolfhound, is bounding into the clearing. In an instant, it is on top of the boar, its great teeth tearing at the gray hide, drawing riblets of crimson. The boar wheels, trying to get at Arwen. I cry out, but the noise of galloping horses overwhelms me. Sir Ector and Kay ride past me on either side. Swiftly, their boar spears join Arwen in the harrowing the beast. Again and again, they drive their great spears into the boar's flesh, until at last it collapses under the assault. Kay blows the signal for the mort. Sir Ector dismounts and runs over to check on you, but Arwen gets to me first and covers my face with slobbery dog kisses. Well, the hunters come and kill and unlace the boar, which is disembowel it and cut it into quarters. Complex. The hunt is done. Kay blows the complex patterns, and all our spirits are high. No time for dilly-dallying because the king is going to arrive tomorrow. We get home, and morning dawns under patchy rain clouds, and honestly, all I want to do is stay under the covers. I roll my energetic versus lazy. I actually failed in my energetic, and Kay admonishes me as the layabout and rouse me out of bed, and then we set to the chores. The boar meat roast over a spit fills the hall with mouth-watering aroma. Sir Jonas is setting up the dresser, the side table where the food is prepared. It's like a U-shaped feast table. With the care he sets up the pewter goblets, ewers, hanaps, etc., the finest platters, gold plates, etc., and with pearls and stones. As I watch as Ector's tapestries taken outside are freshened up one final time, I probably help in beating out the dust. They have hunting, battle, courtship, etc. But then Arthur comes in and says the king approaches. King Mawan of Penlyn is a young man with dark hair with steely blue eyes, scruffy beard just thick enough to cover his chin. He is typical of kings in these parts, more of a tribal chieftain and warlord than anything else. Small train of knights, warriors, ladies, maids, etc. come in. Sir Ector bows, offering rose water to wash his hands and face. My gaze falls upon the most remarkable member of the king's entourage, a dirty runt of a boy dressed in goatskins, a herder. He catches my gaze, winks at me, then disappears among the throng. My attention is drawn by Sir Jonas, who serves as Ector's steward, an officer who oversees the estate food, fields, and flocks. He is doling out assignments for the pages and squires. What happens to me? Am I a layabout or not? I need to roll my courtesy at a -5 because I failed earlier. And I fail the roll. I get kitchen duty. Kitchen duty is always my fate. Hot, sweaty, thankless work. All while getting barked at by Riss, Sir Hector's disagreeable cook. The rest serve at the table. All the food looks great as Riss barks out at me. I go back and forth up ahead with platters, chargers, etc. I won't get this food till the end when it's cold and congealed. Will I sneak a little bite? So I need to roll temperate versus indulgent. I keep the devil away and keep moving. It's a royal feast, no time to mess about. I get the dishes to the dresser, get everything hot. Sir Jonas serves at the high table, presenting the finest cuts of meat to the upper crust, and the upper crust of fresh break parsley bread to the king and his lord. Once he finishes, he approaches me. He says, "You acquitted yourself well. I suppose I must have misjudged you." So he tasks me to prepare and serve hippocras, a hot spiced wine popular in the colder months. I've done this before for Sir Hector at Yuletide, and I go about my new duty with practiced ease. Wow, so the feast has roasted boar, the head is of course on a platter, in ginger sauce, marrow fritters, meat jellies, formed to the shape of Sir Ector's coat of arms, lampreys in sauce, custard tarts, almond omelets, herb fritters, sliced cheeses, everything from the boar. Man, I need a distraction from all this food. So my choice is, do I wish to try and impress the nobles of King Mawan's court, or do I want to eavesdrop? Well, Aiden is not a proud person, so I'm going to roll modest versus proud and see what happens. All right, well, I failed my modest. I'm going to try to impress these dudes. And actually, I made my proud, so I don't know if that would engender a check. We'll see. Based on what I read in the previous ones, the previous types of decisions, I have to check my proud. But let's see what happens. I need to make an unopposed roll on my appearance. Do I impress him or not? Do you think I'm an ugly little dude? I mean, it says appearance characteristic. I mean, it's not just physical looks, but also impression that I make on others, so like charisma. I succeed at 2 out of 12. It's a normal success. You thou, my cup grows empty. You hustle over with a pitcher to refill. I hustle over with a pitcher to fill this knight's cup. He is one of King Mawan's men and a stranger to me. As I pour, he is looking at me. "Are you a page or a squire of this household?" he asks. "A page, sir," I say. "But soon to be squired, I expect," I nod. "Very good. You have a good bearing about you. Sir Ector does his house proud. They say Kay will make a fine knight. He'll be fighting in the tournament, I expect." I give the knight a blank look. "The tournament, surely you know of it. Why, every knight in Britain is going to attend, or so they say, and who wouldn't? I ask you, the prize for winning is only acclamation as the new High King of Britain." I return to the dresser to refill the pitcher, mulling this over. Kay, High King of Britain? Oh my gosh. I laugh and return to the serving table. So after the feast, a month passes. We travel towards Londinium. We follow the course of the River Dee out of Penlyn to Carleon, the city of legions, and then through Camel Yard at Caraway's Castle we turn south and enter Logris, passing over the Chiltern Hills and through the Roman cities of Corinium and Silchester. So, yeah, the latter part of the journey was unsettling, like riding through the enemy territory. There's a constant threat of Saxon raiders in the region since the defeat of King Nantiliod of Escavalon at the Battle of Netley Marsh 2 years ago. Since that defeat, the Saxon kings of the southeast coast have grown bold. Sir Ector has plenty to say. What you have managed to absorb a little bit, that fractious warlords of Britain are doomed to fall one by one to the ambitious Saxons. So Nantiliod was the last best hope for someone to accomplish this by force of arms. Now, by mutual agreement, a tournament is to be held in Londinium on the border of the Saxon kingdom. The winner may be named High King. We spent the night in the stables at Castle Staines. We were surprised to find the steward in the service to Sir Ulfius, the famous Duke of the Vale, who was a Saxon, but Ector explains that the Saxons of the country of Barock have long been allies of our people. It's the kings and warlords, Saxons and Cymri alike, who visit so much woe upon our lands, he says with a sigh, staring into the hearth fire of the great hall at Staines. You and Arthur are listening, myself and Arthur are listening attentively. Kay's probably picking his nose, I don't know. The Saxons have their own style of high king called the Bretwalda. Their kings fight amongst themselves as much as they fight us, and our own counts and dukes, inheritors of a proud Cymric and Roman traditions, lay siege to each other's castles or usurp thrones from those too weak to hold their claim. Everyone scrambles for the prize, and for what? Power and wealth? That's all they care for. So we make it to Londinium. We see a bunch of things. Importantly, I barely started my task when Sir Ector calls me over to some sort of monument erected outside a cathedral's massive front doors, that is. As I approach, I see a strange marvel. A great stone block surmounted by an anvil. Driven into the anvil is a sword, still upright and sparkling in the sunshine. Sir Ector brushes aside a bit of snow on the shaded side of the block and points to some letters carved in the rock. I can't read, but neither can Sir Ector. He brushes aside some snow on the side of the block and points to some letters there. He says that, well, it says something like, "Only the true king can pull me forth," or something like that. Many a knights, including the best in the land, have tried, but all say it will not budge in the slightest. So now my decision is, do I encourage Sir Ector to pull the sword out or try to pull it myself? I think I'm going to roll my loyalty to Lore to see what I do here. Homage to Lore, that is. So I made it 14 out of 15, almost a crit. Maybe I would go, "Do it, Sir Ector, do it!" But I ask him, and he demurs at my suggestion. "No, not I. Such a lowly knight as myself, High King of Britain? I think not," he chuckles. "Ah, here comes Kay." So it says that I have learned an important lesson today. I get to check my modest and go somewhere else, which is good because I checked my proud earlier this adventure. So after that, Kay gives me the day off, and I get to either go explore the world's greatest city. So would I want to examine the tournament grounds or wander the streets? I think I want to wander the streets a bit first. I am but a page, not even a squire yet. If I were a squire, maybe I'd go check out the grounds. But it gives me some choices. I think I got 1, 2, 3, 4 choices. I will roll a dice and see what it tells me. It's like a d20 and divide by, 4. Well, that's cool. I rolled first that I'm going to visit the field of Pendragon, where the head of the god lies buried outside the walls. So there's nothing remarkable about the spot, but there is a man there. I think I will approach. So it asks if I want to give the man tells the tale of Bronn and he sings it. He changes the tune. He gives me a performance and gives me some interesting lore about Bronn and Bronn's head being outside of London and how it got there. Right. His friends decapitated him and set his head around the table like an honored guest, and it kept talking to them. Sounds very fanciful to me, but I give him a silver penny. I get to check my generous trait. And then he concludes and he stands and gives me a friendly nod and walks off across Pendragon, disappearing through a bank of hawthorn trees on the far side. Weird. I get to check folklore as well, which is nice. And the city beckons. Do I want to continue exploring it? Remember that you have to be back in time for supper, but I want to go to the market. I think I will go to the market. And I get to check reckless because of that. So I do go to the market, and even the trade is still brisk. And I wander among the stalls and take in the aroma of spices from far Araby, roasting meat. I guess I do like to eat. Marveling at piles of fine wares on display. And my path is suddenly blocked by a warty old man dressed in filthy, stinking rags. His watery eyes seem to stare right through you, to your very soul. He smiles, revealing a bank of crooked teeth as he leans upon me on a walking stick. He does seem familiar. Spare money? Some money for a poor old beggar? Master, he inquires. A stale smell of his breath washes over me. Of course, I am generally generous, and I felt generous. And I gave some money to this folklorist, this bard, who told me about the head of Bronn. So yeah, sure. As I reach into my purse hanging from my belt, well, there's nothing there. I guess at some point while I wander through the market, some sticky-fingered thief made off with my money. The beggar chuckles at my dismay. Seems you've had a better luck, young master. My luck, young master. But despair not, fortune is often found where you least suspect it. Before you can react, he reaches behind my ear and withdraws an old Roman gold solidus. Keep this, do not spend it, and you'll come into wealth many times its value. I begin to stammer my gratitude when I am interrupted by a cry of an alewife. You stay away from that child, Merlin, you old coot, she says, barreling in between us. We don't need any of your devil-spawned sorceries here. No, we do not. The beggar takes the alewife's assault in good humor, merely tugging at his forelock and walking off laughing. And then it strikes you. This was the same person who accompanied King Mawan's party, though back then he went about in the guise of a goatherd. I don't know if I can check more than once, because I think I've already checked my generous. All right, I gotta go in the next place. All right, now I'll get to the tournament grounds. So I get back, and Sir Ector complains about this Frankish thing, but it is a big thing to have blunted weapons, practice like you practice at home, the whole joust thing. I know at the tents there are several well-known standards flying from tent poles. Maybe I can find a famous knight. Then there is a market where I see vendor stalls, some kind of entertainment taking place. I hear barking of dogs, maybe bull baiting. Lastly, I spot a corral filled with squires armed with staves. It looks like the fight's about to break out. Whoa. Well, I am a brawler. What can I do? Well, I generally try to be modest, so and helpful. And I am honest, so I'm going to check out the fight, because I got some good brawling skills. Not the animal fights. I think that would be cruel. What's going on in the squires at the corral? As I approach the corral, I see many knights gathered around the fence, laughing and yelling encouragement to the squires within. I tug at the mailed sleeve of a nearby knight and say, Hey, what is this? A chance for squires to have a bit of fun bashing each other? Oh, he asks what's going on, and he says, Oh, why this, Bohart? A chance for squires to have a bit of fun bashing each other with sticks. I should join. I think I'm going to go. I run to the inn, grab my gambeson and helmet, don them as I hustle back to the tournament grounds. By the time I get there, this bow horde is underway. I clamber over the fence, and a knight hands me a quarterstaff. No sooner have I turned to face a much older, larger squire, his staff is raised high. It's interesting. The staff is a versatile weapon and functions unlike others in that you get to choose which skill you wish to use and wield it in combat. There's no staff skill any longer in the 6th edition. I can wield it like a spear, making jabbing motions with the tip, or like a sword, holding up with one end, or as a two-handed hafted weapon, with your positions approximately 1/4 of the way from each end. How I wield it is what skill I roll. So my best bet is to use it one-handed like a sword, so that is what I'm going to roll. All right, I actually lost. I rolled an 11 and I need a 9. So what happens to me? I take some damage. So I took 13 points of damage, but I'm wearing a gambeson, which gives me 5 points of armor. So I take effectively 8 points of damage. So 8 points of damage is not a major wound for me. So I'm not unconscious. I think I'm reckless. I'm going to fight another round. I do get a reckless check, by the way. So I'm going to fight another round since I'm still up. All right. Well, I am committed. I just got jacked up for another 11 points. It is not a major wound, since major wound is my con, which is actually 15, which is great. So, but I am at 8 points. I am 1 away from unconsciousness, which is, I think, 1/4 of your hit points. Do I stay another round? I think I'm in for it. Let's see. Last round. This time I succeed, and my opponent failed. I did him good as well. I inflicted 11 points of damage, which is not his major wound, but nor is it half his hit points. So I guess we go fight another round. And I just crit. I rolled a 9 out of 9, which is a crit. And my opponent rolled a 19, so that's a fail, almost a fumble. So if I get a critical, and he did not get a parry or a partial success, I did not. If I got a partial success, I'd add another 2 to my armor, but I did not. So I roll 4d6 and add 5. So 17 points of damage. I did 12 points of damage to him, which is modest. 12 points of damage to him, which is modest, but that inflicts a total of 23. I think that might render him unconscious. Wow, with 1 hit point left, he is unconscious. Yeah, I think with 1 hit point above a consciousness, as I smack this guy in the temple, his eyes roll back into its sockets, he collapses to the ground. I am victorious, this lowly page. The crowd gasped at my fighting ability, or at least I think so. I think I'm nearly done, so I will turn in my staff. And so I'm going to try to find a way to get treatment for my injury, because I took 2 hits pretty bad. So I'm going to go there. But neither were a major wound, they're both minor wounds. So limping and wincing from them, I seek out a tent near Ludgate, passing under the painted shingle depicting a snake with a head at each end entwined around a staff and biting itself. I find a barber with bandaging a knight who managed to stab himself while training. "Have a seat, and I shall be with you shortly," says the barber, without looking up. The minutes pass like hours, but eventually the old man shuffles over to me, begins poking and prodding at my smacks with a copper probe, muttering himself the whole time. His breath smells like garlic. It distracts me from the pain by focusing on his wispy white whiskers. He shuffles off, begins grinding up a poultice on his massive marble mortar. I see freshly blooded knives, saws, drills, and I faint. But yeah, he succeeded. He had a skill of 18. I succeeded both times, so I get my healing rate twice, 1 for each wound. So the healing rate of 3, so I get 6 points back. I think I've had enough for the day. I am going to... The day which began so early has been full of wonders and pain. My senses buzz, and I make my way back to the inn and collapse at the foot of Sir Ector's bed. Tomorrow, the tournament. So the next day is the tournament. Everything is crazy on the way. Sir Ector says they'll be divided into 2 cohorts, red knights and blue knights. We fight a mock battle called the melee. etc., etc. As squires, we got to ride into the field, but we are not to fight. We hold back and look for ways to assist, place the lance, drag us off, etc. If they're knocked out, because, unconscious and all that. My head spins with these roles and new duties as I just got elevated to squire. Maybe they heard about my fighting prowess with the staff. The tournament's large. It's a large, noisy scrum all around the tables. And then Kay, I guess, I got elevated because Kay is going to fight. And Ector and Kay dismount and take their place back to the mob when I notice Ector is without the sword. I grab it from his charger and hustle forth to help and belt it around his thick waist. And then Kay says, "Well, fetch my sword." He turns to Arthur. I forgot it back at the inn, Kay. Kay's face turns crimson in anger. "Oh, Arthur," says Ector disapprovingly. "Quick now. There's a good lad. Go back and fetch it, or your brother will be without a sword on the field." Arthur is off like a dart, shouting promises to be back with the sword in a twinkling. Minutes pass by. Ector and Kay give their names to the herald and are assigned to the Red Knights. Kay keeps looking for Arthur with murderous eyes. What could be keeping that inattentive fool? He turns to me. "Go find the whelp and bring him back with my sword, or so help me." Don't feel like getting smacked by a K, considering I am one hit away from going under. All right. Most of Londinium is at the tournament, and I run through Newgate and down the city's empty streets. It's quite eerie, really. The city's filled with so many people. Just this morning, it's now like a cemetery. My heart is in my throat as I reach the inn. I find Arthur, but he sits against the front door, head on his folded knees. He looks up as I approach, and I see his eyes are rimmed red. "They closed the inn," he wails. "Everyone is at the tournament. I can't get Kay's sword. Oh, what am I to do?" My mind races, and several solutions suggest themselves. I could try to break in. This is an emergency, and surely the Lord will forgive some petty larceny to fetch Kay's sword. But then I remember there was another sword, one in the cathedral. Oh, hell yeah. I'm going to tell Arthur about the sword in the stone. I pull Arthur to his feet. Sir Ector showed me another sword in the courtyard at St. Paul's Down, but I'm about to say it's stuck in an anvil, but before I can finish, Arthur has already taken off. Well, he will see for himself, I say, and I take off after him. I arrive at the empty courtyard gate in time to see Arthur approaching the sword in the stone, his hand extended. A light snow begins to fall. I watch as Arthur steps up to the stone, reaches out, and lightly closes his hand around the sword's hilt. There is a sound of scraping on metal. My mouth falls open as Arthur pulls the sword straight out of the anvil, as if it were from an oiled scabbard. Arthur's face splits in a wide grin, and he beams at me. "You saved my skin, Aiden. No mistake," he says, and off he goes again. This time, back to the tournament grounds, I follow in mute shock. Surely it was loosened. I arrive back at the tournament grounds to find Sir Kay pacing up and down the sidelines. Most of the knights are already on the field. The sound of cheering begins to fill my ears. The melee has begun. "What in the name of Christ took you so long?" he bellows. In the next moment, he sees a sword in Arthur's hand. And whose sword is that?" "I found it, Kay," says Arthur, fighting for his breath. "It's the good sword, I promise." Kay takes it in his hand and gives it a couple swings. He looks impressed, despite his anger. Before he can say anything else, though, Sir Ector rides up and practically jumps off his horse. "Kay, where did you get that sword?" His eyes are wide with astonishment. "I found it, father," says Kay without hesitation. "You found it," says Ector, somewhat incredulously. "Well, no, he did." Kay points to Arthur, and Ector takes his youngest son by the shoulders, looking at him square in the eyes. "Is what Kay said true, son?" asks Hector, his voice husky with emotion. "Yes, father, please don't be mad at me. This is all my fault. I stole the sword from the courtyard at St. Paul's. I shall put it back at once, if you'll only let me." Arthur's wails of protest draw the attention of several knights who themselves have not yet entered the melee. One of them, an aging man of regal bearing, who wears the arms of Camelliard on his surcoat and looks like Patrick Stewart, rushes forward. "What's that? He's drawn the sword. He's drawn it. The sword on the stone?" The others quickly take up the cry. "The sword! He's drawn the sword!" Well, you know what happens next. Everyone rushes back to St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Dubricius, Merlin, King Lot is there. Arthur looks very young all of a sudden. Besides the sword and the stone, he put it back. King Lot of Lothian, one of the greatest warriors of Britain, tribes. He pushes Arthur aside. "If the thing is going to move, it'll move for me." And people cry out, Lot. He grabs it, fails. Then someone shouts, "Let the boy try! Let the boy try!" Was it Merlin? No, it might have been Patrick Stewart as King Leo de Grance. So Lot, angry, steps aside. Sir Ector now besides Arthur nods him, and Arthur lays one hand gently upon the sword and pulls it easily. He slides it back in place. Another knight dismounts. "It is my turn. King Uriens of Gore shall pull the sword." He pushes his way to the rock. Like Lot before him, Uriens grabs and tries and fails. Then people say, "The High King! He's the High King! It's the prophecy!" "The boy drew the sword," shouts Leo de Grance. "This boy is the Pendragon." A few people in the crowd lower to their knees. "Not while I live," shouts Lot, who draws his own sword and strides towards Arthur. His bodyguards dismount and fall into place behind him. You are the one who saw Arthur pull the sword the first time. Now you see Lot advancing with murder in his eyes. The right thing is to speak up in Arthur's defense, but can I do it? Valorous versus cowardly. I succeed. A 4 on my valorous out of 15, and cowardly I failed it. Yay. An 8. I can't believe I'm doing this. "Wait!" I cry with arms wide, standing between King Lot and Arthur. Lot halts, turning his furious gaze on me. I swallow hard, then continue. "I saw Arthur, this youth here, pull that sword the first time. None of you could pull it when you tried. He is our new king." Lot takes 2 steps forward and strikes you with his mailed fist, inflicting 6 points of damage, which fortunately, I am also 1 way away from unconsciousness again. It is like being hit by a boulder. I feel the back of my teeth crack. I drop to the ground and blood gushes from a gash on my cheek. The blow ignites the passions of all assembled, and a terrific melee breaks out as knights from many different kingdoms rush towards the cathedral steps. Through a sickening red haze, you see Arthur pull the blade once more, and it seems that through their eyes the steel flashes with a strange ghost-light. Arthur then steadies himself against the anvil and defends himself against Lot. All right, well, fortunately, the melee is won as King Leo de Grance and his men and a half a dozen other kings and many, many knights swarm between Lot and Arthur. "The boy drew the sword," says King Leo de Grance, and says he's the Pendragon of Britain. "No beardless boy shall ever be my king," shouts King Lot. "Nor mine," says someone. "Nor mine," says someone else. "I say he is my king," shouts King Leo de Grance, and he bends a knee before Arthur. "As I am king, I accept your offer." Lot, seeing that his men are surrounded and outnumbered, throws down his blunted sword. "I'll be back with a sword that won't fail me," he says, baring his teeth, and leaps atop his horse. His guards pivot and spur their steeds, nearly trampling those left in the crowd. "Hail, King Arthur!" shouts Sir Ector. "The whelp!" cries Sir Kay, looking astonished. "Hail, King Arthur!" echoes the crowd, and now Kay joins in again. Wow, reading out loud is pretty powerful. "Hail, King Arthur." I think I see Merlin in the crowd, and he winks at me. I shake my head in amazement as people have lifted Arthur on their shoulders. Yeah, it's crazy. What is my fate? Well, when the things settle, Sir Ector comes up to me and says, "We must knight you first, I suppose," Sir Ector says to Arthur amidst the jostling and tumult. Arthur nods, and slowly, as everything sinks in, and then he turns to you. "And I will need a squire I can trust," he says, a twinkle in his eye. We grin at each other. "I have 7 years of service as a king's squire ahead of me, and in that time I will be knighted. My actions during this adventure presage my future. What kind of knight am I going to be?" Now I get to tally up my points. How did I do? There's a table too for story awards, and what kind of a knight am I going to be? Well, as I tally up all my points, I got 27 points. I only got 1 minus for my proud check. But other than that, I did pretty damn good. You get, if I defending Arthur against King Lot and Arthur making me his squire is a +8. So at 27, I'm a knight of the round table. Okay. I'm knighted by Sir Ector and go on to a great career. I am among the first to receive a personal invitation of the king to join his esteemed martial order, the Knights of the Round Table, a few years hence. My name, Sir Aidan, is destined to be remembered in the tales. Pretty cool stuff. Well, dang, that was very fun. Thank you guys for listening. If you've stayed this long, I hope I didn't bore you too much. It was a really fun session of the solo, and now it makes me want to play more Pendragon. So thank you for listening. This has been the Geomologist Presents. Intro and outro music are by TJ Drennan. My wife does the cover clip art, but today the art are the covers of the 5.2, well, behind, and the 6th edition rule book, which I mentioned. The authors, I think, is Luke Smiley, I believe. Sorry, that's Mark Smiley. And without further ado, good night and good rolling.